Okay, 2 weeks ago on the show, I interviewed Maine Senate candidate Graham Plattner, the Oysterman, an upstart candidate trying to win the Democratic nomination to challenge Susan Collins in November. And a lot has happened since that interview. I mean, just days after that interview, a number of Plattner's old Reddit posts resurfaced showing the candidate had made a number of offensive statements online, calling himself a communist, calling all police officers bastards, using anti-gay slurs, suggesting black people don't tip, minimizing sexual assault, and appearing to call for political violence. Plattner has since apologized for all of those posts, saying that the posts, which are at least 4 years old, are not indicative of who he is today. And he has also openly talked about the impact of his time in the military and the PTSD he has suffered and what he has battled through since that period of time. But not long after that story broke, another controversy from Plattner's past resurfaced, when it was revealed that Plattner had a Nazi-linked symbol tattooed on his chest. Now, Plattner said he got the tattoo in Croatia in 2007 while deployed with Marines, and that he didn't know at the time what the symbol meant. But further reporting into Plattner's online history found evidence that he may have known about the symbol's meaning as far back as 2019. And we'll ask him about this, and he'll tell us. After the news broke last week, Plattner had the tattoo covered up. So needless to say, it has been a whirlwind of a week in the Democratic primary for Maine's Senate. Plattner is facing multiple Democratic opponents in that race, including Maine's sitting governor, who was encouraged to run by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And there was a time when these kinds of early campaign controversies or scandals or past comments would be enough for either voters or incumbent Democrats or outside groups or all of them to push a candidate out of the race. But the reaction to Graham Plattner has been remarkably different. I mean, for starters, there's the response from several of his would-be Democratic Senate colleagues across the ideological spectrum.
Graham has made a lot of mistakes in his life. He's had a very long journey to the place where he is today, but he's owned those mistakes, owned up to them, and he's evolved.
He sounds like a human being to me, a human being who made mistakes, recognizes them, and is very open about it.
He went into a dark period in his life. I suspect that Graham Plattner is not the only American to have gone through a dark period.
That's fair. I mean, then there's the response from Maine Democratic voters. At least one poll, which was taken after his Reddit comments were revealed, but before his tattoo came to light, found Plattner leading his closest Democratic opponent by a whopping 34 points. And just yesterday, Plattner held a town hall in Damariscotta, Maine. He'll tell me if I pronounce that incorrectly, a town with a population of less than 2,300 people. Around 700 people showed up to that town hall, nearly 1/3 of the town's population. That is after everything I just said has been made public. And Plattner made it clear that to the audience, that he plans to stay in the race. Here's what he said.
As this gets hard, as my name gets dragged through the mud, as I get accused of being things I am not and never have been, I have to remind myself that I have no right to quit.
And at least one local reporter covering the race claims that he cannot find a single Maine voter who has changed their assessment of Plattner since the news came to light. So where does this race stand now? And what does Graham Plattner have to say for himself about all of this? And joining me now is Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner. So, Graham, I just laid out everything that's happened since we spoke a couple of weeks ago, or everything that's happened publicly, I should say. All of the offensive Reddit posts that have come to light, the tattoo that resembled Nazi imagery that came to light. I did note that you, of course, apologized for the Reddit post, and you've since covered up the tattoo. I would note one of the things that struck me is that you've seemed, I know you're new to the political world, and that is appealing to people out there, but you've seemed a little surprised that there's been a strong reaction to these things that have come to surface. So let me just start by asking you, did you really not think that any of this would be an issue when you launched your campaign for Senate?
My internet history, I assumed, was going to get poured through. I mean, I'm a regular guy who has lived I'm not going to say a regular life, but I was certainly not ever preparing to run for the United States Senate. And so I spent, many years commenting on the internet. I figured somebody was going to go through all that stuff at some point. That I expected. I will say the tattoo I did not expect. The tattoo thing, I've had it for 20 years. I've gone through multiple security clearances. I've been taking my shirt off in front of other people and taking photographs the entire time. That had never come up. That one, very much caught me by surprise, especially considering that I spent my entire life essentially hating Nazis. So to have that accusation thrown my way was not expected. But no, my internet history, I assumed that somebody would pour through that. And at the end of the day, I look back throughout all the comments I made. There are certainly things that I highly disagree with these days, but they came from times in my life where I had not had the experiences I have now. And I had not had the ability to grow and to change like I have now. And that did not surprise me in the slightest.
I know you're trying to move forward from this, but there's still been some discrepancy kind of about when you knew your tattoo was problematic. There was an anonymous source that said a couple of years ago you may have known. Your former political director said this summer you recognized that it was problematic. So help clarify for us. When did you know and recognize it was a problematic symbol, and how did that come to light for you?
We were contacted by the New York Times, I believe, a few weeks ago, or God, 2 weeks ago now.
So in September or October?
October, yeah, just I think 2 weeks back now. We were contacted. We were asked if I had a tattoo that had Nazi overtones. I have had this thing for ages, and it had never once come up. At that point, we looked at it, we saw what they sent, and it's a stylized skull and crossbones. Stylized skull and crossbones are very popular with military units for obvious reasons, but it looked quite similar. And at that point, I don't want something like that on my body. That is going to make people think I have any kind of ideological similarity to something that is essentially so antithetical to my politics. So I was more than happy to get it covered up.
So you learned in October, and as soon as you learned, you got it covered up immediately, within days, within a day. What was the process there?
It was a busy weekend when we found out. I didn't get to it, I think, until that Tuesday. But yeah, it was within a few days.
Now, your former political director, who I know is no longer with the campaign, said you knew in the summer. Are you saying that she is lying, I guess, about when you knew that this was a problematic symbol? That
is not true. And she also wasn't involved in the campaign in the summer. So that is not accurate.
Let me ask you, I mean, you have now apologized, you have covered up your tattoo, you are getting exposed to, I guess, when people dig into your past and find things about you and bring them to light. Is there anything about your past, about things you've written, about things that you worry could come to light, since you said you knew about the Reddit post, that you want to talk about now and put in context so people out there know?
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure the reason they led with internet comments and a tattoo I got in the Marine Corps is because this is what they have. I've not lived a boring life, but I have lived a fairly simple life. I've never been close to money and power. I've never had the ability to screw people over. I'm sure at some point in my life I've written things on the internet that I don't agree with today, that maybe has not been found. I'm sure somebody will dig it up. My answer to all of it will be the same. I've had a journey. It took a while to get here. I was certainly not always the person I am today. I also understand that it was through that journey that I got to where I am, and I'm very proud of who I am today.
You've said part of this, and we just heard you kind of allude to this, is you want people to forgive, to understand that you've been through a journey. You have talked openly about serving our country, about some PTSD that you've journeyed through, about seeking therapy. To help us understand how you think you've grown and what has prompted you to really grow. For any skeptic out there who's thinking, this was only 4 years ago, how can you really be different from what you posted then?
I will say the posts from 4 years ago are not the ones I'm most ashamed of. I'd like to make that clear. 4 years ago, during COVID, during the BLM protests, I absolutely was angry on the internet at the state of things. I I also at that time was only about a year and a half back from my last trip to Afghanistan, and I was feeling very disillusioned with the larger, I would say, system because of my interaction with frankly the military-industrial complex in Afghanistan in 2018. I think that if we are going to have a politics that is going to be representative of regular people, if we are going to have a politics that's going to allow us to move past the polarization and, frankly, the division that we find ourselves in, we really need to understand that people are capable of changing. We need to keep hope alive, that people that we may disagree with today, that we can find common ground with. Like, if you listen to what I've been saying on the campaign trail across the state, that's what I'm trying to talk about. It is important to me that we realize that most of us, most Americans, have far more in common than we think we do. And we need to give each other grace, and we need to give each other space to grow and to evolve. Because if we can't do that, then I'm not really sure what the purpose of any of this is. And I think I know that people can change because I know that I changed. I know that I turned into a different person. I know that, frankly, by going to therapy and realizing that I need to be more open both with myself and with other people, recognizing that many people are struggling and they're just looking for answers. And you need to remain compassionate and empathetic and open to the fact that they are capable of change and improvement, just like everybody else is.